The year is 1555. In a small chamber in Salon de Provence, France, a physician and seer named Michel de Nostradamus sits hunched over parchment, his quill moving rapidly across the page. He's composing verses that will echo through the centuries. Prophecies so accurate they've predicted the rise of Hitler, the assassination of JFK, and the terrorist attacks of September 11th. And now, buried within his quatrains, researchers have uncovered something that sends chills down the spine. Predictions about a powerful leader in the new world, a figure who rises, falls, and rises again, only to face his greatest challenge in the year 2026. Michel de Nostradamus, better known as Nostradamus, was no ordinary man. Born in 1503, he was a Renaissance polymath, a healer who walked through plague-ridden villages when others fled in terror. A man who claimed to receive visions of the future through what he called divine inspiration. His magnum opus, Les Prophéties, contains 942 poetic quatrains, 4-line verses written in a deliberately obscure mix of French, Latin, Greek, and Italian. Why the complexity? Nostradamus himself said he wrote in riddles to avoid persecution from the church, but also because the future, he believed, should not be too easily understood by those who might seek to manipulate it. For centuries, scholars have debated the meaning of his verses. Some dismiss him as a charlatan, a clever writer, who penned vague enough prophecies that they could apply to anything. But others point to his uncanny accuracy. Century 2, Quatrain. 24 speaks of beasts mad with hunger crossing rivers, suggesting a great war, which many interpret as World War II. Century 1, Quatrain 35, describes a young lion overcoming an older one in a field of combat, an eye wound in a golden cage, which historians connect to the death of King Henry II of France in a jousting accident. The details match so precisely, it's almost impossible to dismiss as coincidence. But what about Trump? What did Nostradamus see about the 45th and 47th President of the United States? To understand this, we need to look at several specific quatrains that scholars now believe point directly to events unfolding in our time. Century 3, Quatrain 57 reads, 7 times you will see the British nation change, steeped in blood for 290 years. Not at all free through Germanic support, Ares fears for his protectorate of Poland. Now, at first glance, this seems to be about Britain, but modern interpreters suggest the 7 changes refer to something else entirely. The number 7 appears repeatedly in connection with Trump. He was the 7th floor resident of Trump Tower. His name contains 7 letters. He announced his first campaign in 2015, whose digits add to 7. Some researchers propose that the British nation changing 7 times is actually a coded reference to the transformation of American politics, as America was once a British colony. And the year 2026 marks exactly 290 years from a pivotal moment in pre-revolutionary America. But it gets stranger. Century 6, Quatrain 5, is where things become truly unsettling. It states, a very great famine through pestilent wave, through long rain, the length of the Arctic pole. Samarobran 100 leagues from the hemisphere. They will live without law, exempt from politics. Samarobran is believed to be an anagram, a technique Nostradamus frequently used. Researchers have rearranged these letters multiple ways, and one interpretation yields Mara Robbins, or a place by the sea where a powerful figure resides. Mar-a-Lago, Trump's Florida estate, sits exactly by the Atlantic Ocean. The reference to living without law and being exempt from politics has eerie parallels to someone who has consistently challenged legal norms and political conventions. The pestilent wave? We've already lived through a global pandemic. The long rain and Arctic pole references suggest climate catastrophes, which scientists warn will intensify in the coming years. But what happens in 2026 specifically? That's where Century 8, Quatrain 76 comes into play. More of a butcher than a king in England, born obscurely will seize the empire through force. Coward without faith, without law, he will bleed the land. Now, let's connect this to Century 2, Quatrain 72, one of the most discussed quatrains in recent years. In the year 1999 and 7 months, from the sky will come the great king of terror, to resuscitate the great king of the Mongols. Before and after, Mars reigns happily. This prophecy didn't manifest in 1999, as many expected, but Nostradamus often used symbolic dating. If we apply certain numerological and astrological calculations that scholars use to decode his work, 1999 plus 27 years brings us to 2026. The King of Terror from the sky could represent many things: nuclear threat, asteroid impact, or even a political bombshell that arrives unexpectedly. Mars, the god of war, reigning before and after, suggests a period of conflict surrounding this event. In 2026, Trump will be 80 years old. Century 5, Quatrain 11 speaks of, "The great one of Rome will surely die, much blood and life exhausted at that time." Modern interpreters note that America is often called the New Rome, the modern empire. Could this predict a health crisis for a major American leader? Or perhaps a political death, an end to influence and power rather than physical death? But perhaps the most chilling prediction comes from Century 1, Quatrain 40. The false trumpet concealing madness will cause Byzantium to change its laws. From Egypt, there will go forth a man who wants the edict withdrawn, changing money and standards. A false trumpet. Trump. The linguistic similarity is striking. Byzantium, the Eastern Roman Empire, was known for its complex politics and power struggles, not unlike Washington, D.C. The reference to Egypt and changing money and standards suggests massive economic upheaval, possibly involving Middle Eastern affairs or global financial systems. In 2026, several major economic factors converge: the end of certain trade agreements, debt ceiling crises, and the potential collapse of traditional currency systems as digital currencies rise. What makes these prophecies even more intriguing is their alignment with other historical patterns. The United States has an uncanny cycle of presidential crises occurring roughly every 40 to 60 years. The Civil War in the 1860s, World War I and the Spanish flu in the late 1910s, World War II in the 1940s, the turbulent 60s with assassinations and Vietnam, the early 2000s with September 11th and the financial crisis. If this pattern holds, the mid-2000s 2010s are due for a major national crisis. Nostradamus wasn't the only seer to point toward this time period. The Hopi Native American prophecies speak of a time of great purification, when the world would see a leader who brings division before a new age. Buddhist texts reference a period of chaos before renewal. Even the biblical book of Revelation speaks of a time when kings rise and fall rapidly. The convergence of these various prophetic traditions around our current era is remarkable. Century 10, Quatrain 72, presents another puzzle. In the year 1999 and 7 months, a great king of fright will come from the sky. He will bring back the great king of the Mongols. Before and after, war rules happily. Again, that 1999 reference that scholars now believe points to 2026 through various calculation methods. The Mongol Empire was characterized by swift conquest, and the disruption of established orders. A leader who channels that energy, who seeks to overturn the existing global system, fits a certain profile. What specifically could happen in 2026? Based on the quatrains and current trajectories, several scenarios emerge. Nostradamus speaks repeatedly of a great conflict involving three major powers. Century 2, quatrain. 89 states. One day the two great leaders will become friends. Their great power will be seen to grow. The new land will be at the height of its power. To the bloody one, the number is reported. The new land is almost certainly America. Two great leaders becoming friends, while a bloody one watches, could reference complex alliances forming, while a third power grows concerned. This dynamic is already visible in current geopolitics with America, Russia, and China. Century 10, quatrain. 72 presents another puzzle. In the year 1999 and 7 months, a great king of fright will come from the sky. He will bring back the great king of the Mongols. Before and after, war rules, happily. Again, that 1999 reference that scholars now believe points to 2026 through various calculation methods. The Mongol Empire was characterized by swift conquest and the disruption of established orders. A leader who channels that energy, who seeks to overturn the existing global system, fits a certain profile. Economic collapse is another recurring theme. Century 8, quatrain. 28 warns. The copies of gold and silver inflated, which after the theft were thrown into the lake, at the discovery that all is exhausted and dissipated by the debt, all scrips and bonds will be wiped out. This is a clear prediction of currency devaluation and debt crisis. The United States national debt will exceed $40 trillion by 2026. The phrase, thrown into the lake, could reference cryptocurrencies, digital money that exists nowhere physically, or it could mean the drowning of traditional financial systems. Natural disasters also feature prominently. Century 1, quatrain 67 describes, "The great famine which I sense approaching will often turn up and then become universal. It will be so great and long that they will grab roots from trees and children from the breast." Climate scientists warn that 2026 could see unprecedented droughts due to El Niño patterns and the continued warming of the planet. Agricultural failures in multiple breadbasket regions simultaneously could trigger exactly the kind of food crisis Nostradamus describes. But there's a personal element too, specific to Trump. Century 6, quatrain 13 reads, "A doubtful one will not come far from the reign. The greater part will want to support him. A capital will not want him to reign at all. His great charge he will not be able to maintain." This quatrain is extraordinary in its specificity. A leader whose legitimacy is doubted, who nonetheless has strong support, who faces opposition from the capital itself, and who ultimately cannot maintain his position. This could describe challenges Trump faces in 2026, whether from legal battles, political opposition, or internal party conflicts. The timing is significant for another reason. Astrologically, 2026 features a rare alignment that won't occur again for over a century. Pluto, the planet of transformation and destruction, will be in a particular aspect with Uranus, the planet of sudden change and revolution, while Saturn, the planet of karma and limitation, opposes them both. Ancient astrologers, whom Nostradamus studied intensely, believed such configurations marked turning points in history. The last time a similar pattern occurred was 1776, the year of American independence. Before that, it marked the fall of empires and the rise of new orders. Nostradamus also employed a technique called temporal triangulation. where he'd reference the same event in multiple quatrains from different angles. When we map all the verses that seem to point to an American leader in the 2020s, we find they cluster around three main themes: a legal or judicial crisis, an economic catastrophe, and a geopolitical confrontation. Century 5, Quatrain. 65 speaks of, "Coming suddenly the terror will be great, hidden by the principal ones of the affair, and the lady will no longer be visible in the fire. Little by little, the great ones will be angered." Hidden legal matters coming to light, a woman in power becoming invisible or losing influence, and great ones meaning powerful people becoming angry. This could describe multiple scenarios unfolding in 2026. The lady in the fire is particularly intriguing. Throughout history, Nostradamus referred to nations as feminine entities. Lady Liberty, Columbia, America itself personified as a woman. The Statue of Liberty literally holds a torch of fire. If the lady is no longer visible in the fire, does this mean America's beacon to the world dims? Or does it refer to a specific female political figure whose influence wanes? There's also Century 4, Quatrain 95. The realm left to two. They will hold it very briefly. 3 years and 7 months having passed, they will go to war. The two Vestals will rebel against them, the victor born on American soil. Two holding power briefly, then 3 years and 7 months of something before war. If we count from January 2025, when Trump took office again, 3 years and 7 months brings us exactly to August 2026. Vestals were virgin priestesses in Rome who kept the sacred flame. What's most disturbing is Century 3, Quatrain 97. New law to occupy the new land towards Syria, Judea, and Palestine. The great barbarian empire will crumble before the cycle of the moon is complete. A new law affecting new land, America, with implications for the Middle East. If the Trump administration enacts policies that dramatically shift Middle Eastern dynamics in 2026, this could trigger a cascade Nostradamus foresaw. The barbarian empire crumbling has been interpreted as either the collapse of a perceived enemy or the fall of a power that others view as barbaric. Before the cycle of the moon suggests roughly 29 days, a rapid collapse once it begins. We must also consider Century 2, Quatrain 57. Before the conflict, the Great One falls, the Great One to death. Death too sudden and mourned. Born imperfect, he will go the greater part of the way. Near the river, the land is stained with blood. A Great One falling before a conflict, a sudden death that's mourned. Born imperfect could mean born into imperfect circumstances or having imperfections of character. Near the river, with blood-stained land. The Potomac River runs through Washington, D.C. The Hudson River runs past Trump Tower in New York. Multiple rivers mark locations significant to American power. Skeptics will say we're reading too much into vague poetry written in the 16th century. They'll argue that Nostradamus wrote in such ambiguous terms that anything can be made to fit, and they have a point. Confirmation bias is real. We tend to see patterns that confirm what we already believe. But the counter-argument is equally compelling. How do we explain the sheer number of apparently accurate predictions? How do we account for specific details that seem to align so perfectly with actual events? The name similarities, the geographical references, the timing that works out mathematically when using methods Nostradamus himself indicated. Moreover, Nostradamus wasn't predicting to entertain or to create a following. He was deeply religious, genuinely believed he'd been given glimpses of the future, and he agonized over what he saw. In his preface to his son, he wrote about wanting to burn his prophecies, because the visions troubled him so deeply. A man doesn't fake distress over invented prophecies. So what happens next? If these interpretations are correct, 2026 will be a year of unprecedented challenge for Trump and for America. Multiple crises converging, legal battles reaching their climax, economic systems under strain, international conflicts. The predictions for Trump in 2026 are warnings. Warnings about unchecked power, about ignoring environmental catastrophe, about letting economic inequality spiral out of control, about the dangers of charismatic leaders who bypass institutional safeguards. Whether these specific events happen to Trump, or through Trump, or despite Trump, the underlying message remains: we are approaching a critical juncture. Century 1, Quatrain 63 perhaps says it best. The scourge is past, the world becomes smaller. Peace for a long time lands will be inhabited. People will travel safely through the sky, over land and seas. Then wars will start again. A period of relative peace and technological advancement, travel through the sky becoming common, but then wars erupting again. We've had decades of relative peace in terms of world wars. We've normalized air travel. We're on the cusp of space tourism becoming accessible. By this reading, we're at the end of that peaceful cycle, about to enter the wars start again phase. And 2026 is when that transition begins. What can we do with this information? First, awareness. Understanding that we may be entering turbulent times allows us to prepare practically and psychologically. Second, engagement. The future isn't written in stone. Our choices, individually and collectively, shape outcomes. If Nostradamus shows us a dark path, we can choose to walk a different one. Third, discernment. Not every interpretation is correct. Remain skeptical, but open. Question, verify, think critically. The story of Nostradamus and Trump isn't really about one man's fate. It's about the fate of a nation and a world at a crossroads. It's about whether we heed warnings from history, from prophets, from our own common sense, or whether we barrel forward ignoring all signs until crisis forces change upon us. As we approach 2026, keep your eyes open. Watch for the signs Nostradamus described: economic instability, conflicts in the Middle East, legal challenges to powerful figures, natural disasters increasing in frequency and severity, political polarization reaching breaking points. These aren't just prophecies anymore. They're headlines we read every day. The question isn't whether Nostradamus was right. The question is what we do with the foresight we've been given. If you found this deep dive into prophecy compelling, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell. We're going to continue exploring what Nostradamus and other seers predicted for the coming years, breaking down the quatrains as events unfold in real time. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear this information. Leave a comment telling us what you think. Do you believe Nostradamus truly saw the future? Are we headed for the crisis he predicted in 2026? Or are there other interpretations we should explore? Your insights add to our collective understanding. Together, we can navigate whatever the future holds. Stay aware, stay prepared, and we'll see you in the next revelation.